Department of Employment Security, for taking time out of your busy schedules to come here today, despite the weather, to show your support to extending federal unemployment benefits. I'm here today to share my personal story, because I have been one of the long-term unemployed. I understand how important it is to the 1.4 million Americans who just lost their earned unemployment benefits, especially those who run out of time and resources to pay for simple things like food and rent for their basic survival. I understand because I lost my job in November 2011. I had worked for an electronics distributor here in Chicago for 11 years and was suddenly informed that my job was going to be outsourced to Cleveland, Ohio. So I had two choices. I could either move to Cleveland or I would have to train someone there to do my job within 4 weeks. And there was also the choice of terminating my employment immediately, but I would not receive the bonus incentive for performing the difficult task of teaching someone everything I had learned and worked hard to cultivate. I did choose to stay and train with someone else to take my job, and I tried to have a positive outlook on this event. I thought this would give me the opportunity to find work with an unemployment organization, as I had put a lot of time into volunteering and building charity programs at the company I worked at. When I lost my job, I didn't just lose my job. I lost my health insurance, my 401k retirement account, a legal services account. I also lost working in a charity garden that I worked on hard for 2 years, which also provided food for homeless people in the community where I worked. So I had never filed for unemployment in my life before. I had never had any trouble getting a job that suited my education and experience. In the past, I could walk into an office temp agency and get a job the very same day. This is exactly how I attained my job where I worked for 11 years. The Monday after I graduated from Columbia College, I walked into an agency and was offered a job the same day. After the 90-day probationary period, I was hired where I worked for this electronics company for 11 years. I found out that the temp agency climate had changed drastically in the time that I had left. I had assumed that I would be able to live off my 3-month severance pay that I was given from the company and wouldn't even have to file for unemployment. I thought the worst case scenario would be that I would have to start over at the bottom of the company by being a temp again, possibly having to learn a new industry as well. But again, it was nothing new. I had done that several times before when companies had moved. So after 3 months, I still hadn't found a job, and I filed for unemployment. I also checked back with the same agency that had helped me get a job before and found out just how hard things were. I had some awareness of what was going on with the economy. When I was laid off, it was the same month that the Occupy movement was taking off, where people were very upset about the economic and financial crisis that had been caused by Wall Street. I also knew that the people I worked with were being paid much less than what I was being paid 10 years ago. So the best jobs that I was hearing out at these temp agencies were things that were actually adding to the economic crisis. The best thing that they could give me was a job working at a payday loan company, which I ethically could not work for. You know, they're just adding to the problem where they're charging 400% interest to borrow for, to lend money to people who are desperate and who can't afford those loans, and it's just creating a bigger hole for them. So I did take the time, and those unemployment benefits gave me some time to try to find a job that, at that point I didn't expect to equal my salary. I just wanted to have a job that could, where I could pay my rent and I could survive. So my unemployment benefits were $1,200 a month, and where I was living in Rogers Park, my rent was $900. So after I paid utilities and for a CTA pass, I had $100 left for food and any other kind of expense. I did consider moving to a cheaper studio, to the cheapest place in my neighborhood, but I was also afraid of trying to find an apartment without a job and trying to rent from someone who didn't know me, and perhaps they would evict me if I did fall into trouble where I was having difficulty finding a job. So it was very difficult. I had to use money from my 401k, and I can't even imagine how impossible it must be for unemployed parents. So for any member of Congress to suggest that the unemployed are having some kind of extended vacation by living off this modest stipend that is paid is completely ridiculous and insulting. Why would anyone jeopardize their livelihood by not looking for full employment? Do they not understand the reality of what it means to be unemployed in a terrible recession? Apparently not. Because if these members of Congress were simply paying attention and understood the reality for millions of Americans, they would know there are simply not enough jobs for the middle class. Why are they allowing companies to outsource jobs overseas? It also hurts workers like me when companies decide to outsource jobs to different states to cut costs. But why are companies cutting costs? Because they're not making profits? Wall Street would tell us otherwise, as companies, including the one that laid me off, had tremendous sales growth, and instead of creating more jobs or giving workers higher salaries, they made cuts so that more of the wealth is concentrated at the top. So when I revisited the same office temp agency that I had in 1999, I was told that I would not make more than $12 an hour, or 15 years ago, I was making $15 an hour. By March of 2012, I was extremely frustrated. I was forced to start using money from my 401k to live on, and I was very fearful of the warning from job counselors stating that people who've been unemployed for longer than 6 months would face job discrimination. Again, I find this completely ridiculous and unfair. Why were my 25 years of education and experience suddenly of no value just because I had the misfortune of having my job taken away from me so they could pay someone else to do the same job for less? I decided if no one would hire me, at least respond to the hundreds of resumes I was sending out each week, I would do whatever I could to keep my skills fresh and to be productive. So I started volunteering and networking in my community. I tried a lot of different things to make money. I tried freelance writing. I even tried to start my own business. I thought selling green energy would be like the perfect thing for me. You know, I was going to be selling sustainable energy sources from coal or from solar and wind instead of coal and oil. And I thought, well, networking opportunities I have, that surely this would be something that I could be successful at. But that didn't work out. I only sold like 2 accounts for that. So I kept on looking. So when I hear news about unemployment, stating people in my position have been employed for a long time and are underemployed and have given up, I just have to wonder, like, what does given up mean? Does it mean that they're homeless? Does it mean that they have moved in with family members and are in such a state of depression they're unable to function, or worse? So Senator Kirk and members of Congress, please do not give up on the American worker or the middle class. Do not punish workers for losing their jobs through no fault of their own. They have paid into the system and they have earned these benefits. These modest benefits are helping to keep families off the streets and have money for food so they can look for work. I feel I am very lucky because I have lived through this nightmare of not knowing how I'm going to pay for rent or how I'm going to have money to get to work. I started working in July, but I'm still underemployed. I still don't make enough money, even though I'm working full-time, to pay my rent. So the real solution to these problems is not just extending unemployment, but we do need that. We need a jobs bill. We need to create more jobs for the middle class. We need to stop outsourcing so many jobs. So again, the nightmare for me isn't really over, and I know for the workers who lost their benefits, they're not out of danger either. We all want to work. We want to have our peace of mind and dignity restored. I still want to believe that the American dream can exist, that if you work hard enough, that you study enough, and that you're kind to people, that you can be successful. I think that's a big thing that's missing from our corporate culture is kindness. I think that, profits for the few have become more important than treating people right. So let's start rebuilding that dream by extending federal unemployment benefits for those workers who need them. Thank you. you.